Hello, and welcome back to the garden, everyone. Yes, it's been a couple of months again. I'm very sorry. But we've had, I think, 3 or 4 heat waves. I lost count, to be honest, after the second one. Working out in that heat, I don't think I actually missed a single day, bar one, when we had 38 or 40 degrees in Suffolk. It was unbearable. I spent the day on the sofa in front of a fan with ice cold drinks all day. But we are here now. It is mid-August and we had rain. Yes, actual rain that lasted for more than 5 minutes a couple of nights ago. And we've got a little bit more scheduled over this weekend. So we're starting to get a little bit of rain, nowhere near enough as we really need. When we go out into the paddock, you'll see it's literally cracked, completely wide open. You can fit your hand in. It's awful. But I've been inspired a little bit by a couple of the other garden videos and Grow MK, your video of the good, the bad, and I think the crispy. Well, this is the good, the bad, and there's just straight dead. I have lost plants. In fact, underneath the camera right now is one of my Scheffleras, my Delavier. That is gone. The massive Taiwaniana, I'll show you in a minute. It's not dead, but it's probably been heavily reduced. Lots of things have really not done well with the heat. The hosepipe ban Aussie hasn't really helped, but it's just been the sheer heat that has killed some of these plants. So let's go around. I'm going to do this not in a big garden tour, but we're going to go through, we'll do the good stuff, we'll do the not so good stuff, and then I'll quickly touch on the stuff that has snuffed it this year. Okay, so starting off with the good stuff. I started the video in front of the tiki hut because it's one of the few places that actually looks good this year. And that is, I'm going to say, purely because of the shade. The ornamental cherry blossom and the Musa Baju and the eucalyptus have done a great job of sheltering this area, and everything is looking green, which is saying something. As you can see through there, other stuff isn't. But we've got the runner beans. These are doing excellent. We've got big old runner beans on them. Everything down here is doing fine. The Alpina Schefflera did not succumb to the heat, which is good to see. Everything else here though is basically kind of what you would expect. Not as good as it could be because it's just not been able to be watered as much, but everything is looking green, which is more than I can say for most of it. This Lismachia Zixing is doing really well. In fact, there's a couple of pots there that I've kind of just stuck some of these runners into just to get more plants from. They've absolutely loved this weather. Woodwardia unigamata has really enjoyed the shade. Don't know whether it's enjoyed the heat, whether it would have done better without the 30 odd degree heats, but it's looking really good. I've got a few new hostas, so that one is marmalade on toast, just because I thought it sounded fun. And then we've got the spiderweb Fapsia down there, which are all doing well under the shelter and shade of this Mbasju. So one thing I've really enjoyed was Chris down in Kent, the pocket rainforest. His garden is phenomenal, especially this year. The Spanish flag that I planted at the bottom of these Baju climbing up actually doesn't look quite as good now that the leaves got a bit bigger, but I like that scrambling plant up, so that will be a regular mainstay I think now. They've really not been watered and they've just coped with this heat with the shade, and they're climbing up there, which looks lovely. Another plant that has absolutely loved the heat is the brown turkey figs. They have not missed a beat. They've been absolutely brilliant. They've produced significantly more fruit than they have done in previous years. In fact, we had so much in one go that we actually made a fig jam and used that in like a flapjack type thing, which was absolutely lovely. We've still got half of a jar left. And there's always hundreds and hundreds of these like thumbnail sized pieces of fig. This Sycamensis has done well as well. You know, this gets cut down every year, and despite not really watering it, it's done really well. The pot plants, actually, by the by, have been really good this year. They've not struggled anywhere near as much as even the same kind of plant that has been in the ground. I'm putting that down to the fact that each plant has got a certain amount of space for it to grow in, which is normally more than enough for it, and that gets fully watered, but there's nothing else taking any of the moisture away, just that plant. And also there's no massive expanse of moisture coming off of the surface because it's just a small plant pot. So the plants have all done absolutely fine. I got the sago to flush this year by giving it quite a bit of water, but you know, it's put out a new flush this year, which has been really good. And the other thing that surprised me is the bamboo. Now, while I have watered certain things in the garden, I have not touched the bamboo whatsoever. The Phylostachys auricolis vivax bamboo, the yellow one, hasn't really put out anything this year, but the Phagesias and the black bamboos haven't really been affected at all. Now, whether that will be they get affected next year because the moisture from this year was going to be building next year's columns, I'm not too sure. But you know, they've not really even kind of curled up. The Brugmansias have done quite well, but then to be fair, they are in a pot, and when we've done the washing up, I do tend to come out and use that. But I've got a few white flowers coming on here. This kind of needs staking. The bits down here are all in trays. I went and bought some trays from Wicks just to kind of give everything be able to sit it in some water constantly. So that's all done well. All of the rhododendrons in here have done well, but again, you know, they shouldn't really be getting tap water because obviously they want the acidic water. It should be rain, but there hasn't been any water in my water butts for probably 2 months. We had effectively 3 months without any rain. The only rain I can remember from since May until earlier this week was late June. We had about less than 5 minutes. I didn't even get my phone out to film it because it had stopped before I'd got it out. So they've been watered with tap water, and they'll just have to cope with a slightly different pH to what they would want. The other pot plants have done well here. Everything really has done well. The Eucomis polavancii has done really well. This is another polavancii. I forget which one this is. That might be the dark one, or this is the darker one. But you know, one's put a flower out and one hasn't. So hopefully they'll bulk up more this year and then give me some flowers next year. The cannas have obviously absolutely loved the heat. The panache on the left here, and obviously Cleopatra on the right. This Cleopatra had a completely variegated stem, and then this part variegated stem. So I had pure red flowers, yellow with variegated red kind of streaks through it. And the Phygelius that my wife and I, especially my wife, has been getting into, haven't really minded the heat whatsoever. Plant that seems to have absolutely been fine with the heat was, of course, the Albrizia. This is looking really nice this year. I really wanted to get into a big oak barrel. I've got obviously that oak barrel there needs to be cut in half because it's no longer suitable as a water butt. But I was going to use that here for this, but that's probably going to have to wait till next year, and this will just get moved into the greenhouse this year. Excuse the state of everything here. We've had builders in this year, which is also why I've not been able to get out in the garden so much. This little corner here has done really well this year as well. So that's Mahonia soft caress. They've been absolutely fine, not struggled whatsoever. Obviously the Trachea is a Fortunii, no problems there. It's just a newer plant that went in, I think it was only last year, you know, one of the B&M cheap ones, so it will take a couple of years to get its roots in. This Salvia Amistad has done really well. You know, it's not produced flowers yet, but it got cut right back and it's done fine with minimal watering. The Begonia torsa has done really well, which is good because I did lose one of the two plants at the beginning of the year. The Roscoias have done well. This is another flush of flowers on this one. And I chucked the begonia vines out in the garden probably a couple of weeks ago when we had the hot weather, just because I needed the space in the kitchen, and I thought they were dead. I was just throwing them out here because I just wanted the space, and this one has put on a good amount of growth, which is great to see. In the raised brick bed, things that are doing well are courgettes and squashes. You know, they love the heat and I can water them enough, and they're in a really good rich soil. The zinnias that I sowed at the beginning of the year are one of the few flowers that I have still got, and they've been absolutely fine. Here they are in quite a bit of shade because the sun comes up over here. So we've got the tetrapanax, we've got the other Fortunii, giving them plenty of shelter and shade, but it's still bright enough for them to thrive. The dahlias have done absolutely fine in here as well, and obviously the inset bananas have done really well as well. They could just do with more watering, like most things, but they've been fine. This ricinus is one of the few that I've got that's actually growing to a decent sized plant. So hopefully in another few more weeks that will, get up here and be a bit more of a bigger specimen, but that's done pretty well too. Over by the pond, this peony has done very well compared to others. I'm going to say it's because it does get some shelter. The tree fern has been absolutely fine as well. I get to water that every now and again, but again it's got the shelter of the musabashu. Everything that's growing well has got shelter and some shade from the midday sun on it. That is the main key thing here. The pond itself, I cleared it out, as you can see at the back there, but it's actually not doing too bad. I've managed to figure out my leak is not a leak, it was just a low spot. I've sorted that and now it no longer leaks or has water draining from it. The algae just comes back because the pond is in a lot of sun. I really need to kind of get in, pull the algae out, do a treatment on it, and then maybe put some of the blue dye in to stop the sun kind of getting the algae too much. But there's only so much time in the day, and the algae does give wildlife a little bit of a refuge and also keeps the sun off of the pond as well to stop it evaporating, because during the hot spells there was losing 100 litres a day, which is just not viable to keep topping up. This hibiscus has done really well. This is in full sun. I cannot stress how much sun this thing gets. It needs watering, but it copes with direct sun and lots of heat really well. So I've got a few more hibiscus. I bought a new one a couple of months ago. I don't think that showed up in the last video. It was on my Instagram. So I think a few more hibiscus dotted around, especially ones that are going to get larger to provide that canopy for others. The elders here, this one especially, but the other one on the far end there, have done really quite well. Other ones further down in the garden have struggled more. The cannas down here have done well. Everything along here has done really well. Even the alströmerias, they don't seem to mind the heat. And on this side, I haven't bothered pulling the stems out to get new growth to come through, because I figure I'd just leave the plant to its own devices. This year is a bit of a write-off regardless, so yeah, we'll just kind of let them do their own thing. The phormiums have done well, but they have lost quite a bit of dieback just because it's just been too dry, but they cope with the heat. If I could water them more, then they are fine. This is one of the squashes that's literally clambered all the way over there with the fruits coming through, so just goes to show that squashes really are a very good filler. A couple of things that have done really quite well is obviously yuccas. So the yuccas, there's a few bits here and this one here. I mean, these have been out of the ground, cut off for probably 6 to 8 weeks now. I really need to get them in the ground because I did clear all the dead off and they are still obviously dying back because there's no roots. But this one, in a tiny little pot, just to root it as a temporary measure, has decided to throw up a flower spike. So, you know, who would know? Yuccas and all of the agaves love the sun and heat. The grapes, we've had quite a good little harvest of grapes on this one. The other grape has had them all eaten by the birds. But again, as long as they get some water and a little bit of shade, they are really quite happy. So I think I've got some ideas to use these around a few places to help provide some canopy shade. And lastly, the plant that has not really given two hoots about drought or the heat or how much sun it gets is the akebia. My God, this thing, you know, the tree it was on died and collapsed, and this thing has just kept on growing without watering or any care. This is going to get removed from here and moved to another position over by the barbecue, because I'm fed up with the honeysuckle looking awful this time of year, looking bare and barren because it just doesn't like the amount of sun it gets. So it's getting that spot. The akebia can go in the full sun. I'll move the honeysuckle to somewhere else where it's out of sight, and it can just kind of do its own thing. And that is it for plants that have done well this year. Everything else is either bad or died. So let's go down here for the stuff that's bad. The ferns have struggled. I've been keeping on top of them as much as I can. The peonies, you know, they're looking rough. You know, we're only in mid-August. They should be green still. This one especially, you'll notice this bed starts green, and as you come down, gets more barren and worse as you go down. The ligularias here, I always think this is my shady bed because it's on the north side of this hedge. This hedge is at highest 8, maybe 9 foot. The sun is over that by about 10 a.m. and past this Indian bean tree by about midday. So all of that blue sky is basically midday till about 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Hottest part of the day during July and August, and it just bakes this entire area. Yeah, simple mistake to make again, but I've always planned on having more canopies down here. It's why I had the eucalyptus down here, but obviously this has basically died right back in places. This leading stem has stopped being the leading stem and it's sprouted from down the bottom. So I'm thinking this may very well get dug out, and I'm just going to get something bigger in. This munitum has really struggled because it's in so much sun, whereas this one, which was planted at the same time, is significantly bigger. The ligularias are fine, they flop in the heat, but if you water them, they come right back. So watering is obviously not ideal. However, if I can get a canopy in here, which is, as I say, my key thing for the garden going forward, they can stay. Otherwise, I'm going to have to think about moving them to another part of the garden, even if they're just in pots and they can just be sat on the edge of the pond or in drip trays for next summer. The Fatsia camouflage over the back there, I mean, that is pathetic. It's really struggled. I'm going to the garden centre tomorrow and I'm probably going to buy a few more. I will leave that one in just because, but I do want to fill this back end down here with them. Again, you know, I really need some more shelter down here first, so I've got the idea of moving the loquat tree, because although it's fine where it is, it's still, I mean, it's been in there 8 years and it's very loose in the ground. So I'm hoping with a bit more sun it will grow a bit more vigorously and get down some bigger roots. And obviously evergreen, it will fill this in, and we can have some other plants growing up. I'm thinking cordylines, maybe some trachea, something like that to go up. But even the elders have really, really struggled in the heat. Again, the further you go down, the worse it gets. The Acer has actually done okay. Not amazing. It's, you know, it's lost a lot of leaves already. They really don't like this hot weather. Even if I could water it as much as it wanted, it would not like the heat. I lost some ferns down here, partly to the heat, partly to rabbits still getting in. New Zealand privet has done okay. Some are obviously, looking decidedly dishevelled, losing leaves, but I have no doubt that will bounce back once we get into autumn and we get a bit more water in the ground again. This side has always been a tip and still is a tip, I'm afraid. The Clematis armandii has suffered in the sun, but again hasn't really got too bad, but it has struggled. It's just needed more moisture at the roots, I think, and the scrappy area is still the scrappy area, however with fewer weeds because they can't grow as well. Mahonias have been untouched by the heat, which was nice, so they can go in the good pile. Much like the soft caress, they got the same kind of thing. They are ever so slightly yellow and a little bit curled because they could have done with a little bit moisture and a little bit more shade, but they've coped quite fine. So things that have died. Well, this was some of my sweet peas. They obviously did not like the heat, and down here we're not getting the water like the ones in the pot up by the house. So sweet peas were a no-go, unfortunately. And the 50 or 60 cosmos that I planted were all in here. Once the rabbits realised they were there, they literally destroyed them within 3 or 4 nights, which is why we have the mesh. I have one cosmos that has survived, which is this one, and it has not done any flowers. Obviously the tetrapanax have survived and got plenty of growth. They just get really badly scorched and look a bit unsightly. But all of the crocosmias down here just could not cope with the dry weather. The ones by the pond have started to kind of go over now. They haven't provided any flowers. They've literally just put out green growth and then that's been it. The acanthus also has not coped with the heat. I'll be honest, I think I'm done with the acanthus. I planted them because obviously they're a perennial, they're easy to grow, but even without this heat they look rubbish at this time of year. If they're not in full shade, or at least a good amount of shade, they look awful. So I think they're going to come out this year. The big thing in the garden that's been hit is this Schefflera. I mean, you can look at this stem. So, the growing point hasn't died off because it's been scorched or anything, but that's the newest leaf that obviously came out as the leaves literally fall off. But yeah, all of this stem has gone, lost all its leaves, and we've just got new growth down here at the bottom where it's kind of sending out suckers because I presume some of these stems are no longer viable. The waggy over the back there, if I step back, I'm thinking about putting it like slap bang in the middle, kind of here, so because it's got enough height for it to be planted here and for me to basically walk underneath it, and then that will provide shade and shelter to all of the edge of the pond here and also over here a little bit. Then when this eucalyptus grows back up again, this should grow right up. That will then provide a bit of cover for the Schefflera, and everything will just start shading each other. The thing I noticed with Chris, I think it's Chris at the Pocket Rainforest, is he's got a massive amount of canopy, and I was like, well, if everything is a canopy, then surely everything's getting sun on it. So why isn't everything dying? But because everything's got a canopy on it, each plant shades the next one. So, here you'll have something else here. Well, then this isn't getting sun on it because there's a big plant here. So everything protects each other, and then everything underneath it is good as well. So tomorrow at the garden centre, I might get a few fatsias to go down past the greenhouse, but I also want to get cordylines. I think mostly cordylines. I've struggled with them in the past, but I'm going to give them another go because they're going to give me a canopy quicker than say a Trachycarpus, unless I buy big plants. Then over here, these Crocosmias were looking fine until a few weeks ago, but have completely snuffed it. I have lost my Xanthodecia Hercules, which was behind these Crocosmias. I had tried my best to survive, keep that going, but it's done. It's snuffed it. I cut the black bamboo down here before we started getting all of the heat waves, and obviously cut the conifer down, and that meant the sun could get right in on the Gunnera. And well, it went from being the best year for my Gunnera to probably the saddest, but it is alive. That is the main thing, because obviously I can't just go to the shop and buy another one. So yeah, it's basically a case of trying to make sure that this doesn't die so that I can keep it going for next year. This was my low spot, by the way. Once I dug it all back, quite obvious how much that drops down there. But this was my low spot, and the soil was obviously ramped up and it just kept everything damp. So this whole end is going to get redone. But that is it. That is the good, the bad and the dead. The biggest obviously loss was the Dlavii, a new plant, not an established one. You know, if I lose this Schefflera, that's not a load of money to replace just with a basic Taiwaniana nowadays, but it's 8 years worth of growth. So that is this week. I will be doing another one for the next few weeks. I've got a few videos lined up, so please do hit like, comment, subscribe, all those things. I would love to get to 1,000 subscribers the end of this year. That's a long way off for me, but if we can make that happen, I'm gonna pull my finger out and give you guys more regular videos. I've got a whole list of topics I want to cover, and this was just the first of many. So I will see you next time, guys. Take care.